welcome to episode 2 of Make Democrats Great Again.
So much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, again, it's all about the contrast.
There was a lot of fear-mongering about why it was so important not to vote for Trump this election cycle, as there were the last two in 2016 and 2020. And a lot of the talking points are the same, some are a little different, but it's really important to me to show Democrat types, left-leaning blue team types, why that kind of fear-mongering didn't work. And even I should say fear-mongering, some of it may be legitimate to worry about some of the stuff that Trump has said or done or says he might do. But the reason that it fell on deaf ears for a large part is because a lot of the same stuff that people, Kamala and Democrats were accusing Trump of, they actually do at least as egregiously. So we're going to go over some of these things and show what we need to clean up on our side of the street. And again, it's like some of this stuff just winds up seeming like projection and gaslighting, because they claim Trump's doing it, but they're doing it too. So we're going to look at some of these issues right now. And we're going to start with the idea that Trump is a threat to democracy. So here is Cenk of the Young Turks discussing the Democrats on democracy.
How did the Democrats rig primaries? They rigged it in 2016, they did only 6 debates where the Republicans did over 20. They buried the debates on nights where there was football so they'd get less viewership. And then Donna Brazile fed Hillary Clinton the questions in a debate. By the way, who broke that story? Young Turks broke that story, okay? And so when we did, the establishment called us radicals, lunatics, conspiracy theory. There's no way Donna Brazile gave the questions to Hillary Clinton, but we were right. She did, okay? By the way, CNN, did you ever come back and apologize to us for being right about that story? No. So that's another way that they rigged it. The third way they rigged it is they put money from the state parties and funneled to Hillary Clinton, which they should have never done. That's money laundering for one of the candidates against another while they're pretending to be neutral. In the 2020 primary that barely existed, we had people in the race. We had me, we had Marianne Williamson, we had Dean Phillips. You could have had a real primary. In the beginning, we had RFK Jr. and he was actually polling really well. So you should have kept all those people in the primary, and you should have had debates. Of course, they were never going to have debates. You can't challenge the powerful in a Democratic primary. And then they started canceling elections. The party that was in favor of democracy canceled the Florida election in the primary. Like, that's not a thing. You can't cancel an election in a primary. What are you guys doing? So I know all of this, brother.
Okay, next is a video that I have saved of RFK. On his Instagram. I started following his Instagram quite a long time ago, and this was one of many videos where he outlined how the Democrats, the DNC, the establishment were trying to subvert his attempt at running at first as a Democrat in the primary and then as an independent. Of course, most people know the mainstream media has branded RFK as an anti-vaxxer and a quack and all these kinds of ways, which he is concerned with vaccine safety and he very much wants to make sure that they're tested and that they're safe, that the pharmaceutical companies have some liability when their drugs are harming people. And so he's not anti-vaccine. It's like, the analogy that I've heard is that, if you're trying to clean up the water in Flint, Michigan, no one's going to call you anti-water. You're trying to make sure the water's safe. So that's the thing. But the media, in coordination, the media is always doing somebody's bidding. And so he has just been slandered as this quack. But I would urge you to look into RFK a little bit more yourself. He's probably wrong about some things, but he seems to me to be an earnest, good faith actor who really, really wants to do a lot of legitimately amazing stuff for the health of this country. And so here is one of many videos of him outlining all of the ways that the DNC tried to make sure that he had no chance of getting an audience with the American people or being on the ballot, which, by the way, I'll get to that in a second.
We just lost our ballot access case in the state of New York, and we will be appealing this, and we're very confident that in the Court of Appeals or the Appellate Division that we will prevail, that this loss is just a road bump. But I wanted to explain to you what happened. My driver's license is in New York. My car is registered in New York. My law license is in New York. I pay income taxes in New York more than any other state. My law office is in New York, my only law office. And I also have a lot of other licenses in New York. My hunting license is here, my fishing license, my falconry license, etc. I vote here. It's the only place that I vote. The rule in virtually every state is that your domicile is the place where you intend to return. I'm living now in California, but I've always voted in New York, and I've always intended to return here. And when Cheryl and I married in 2014, we agreed that when her acting career is over, that we'll come back to New York and we'll live in the town of Bedford. I've lived in this town for 40 years. As you guys can imagine, this lawsuit is a frivolous lawsuit. It's a lawsuit that was brought by the DNC. The cost of these lawsuits by the DNC to us, to my campaign, is going to be over $10 million. Defending these frivolous lawsuits, we've won every one, and we're going to win this one. But they're using lawfare to try to keep us off of the ballot. Is the opposite of what the Democratic Party was doing when I was a kid. The Democratic Party of Robert Kennedy, of John Kennedy, was a Democratic Party that was fighting to make sure that every American could vote for the candidate of their choice. The Democratic Party of today is doing everything in its power to make sure that Americans can only vote for the candidates that the party elites choose. And as you know, President Trump and Vice President Harris have both managed to get their party's nomination without actually running in a primary. They were simply chosen by the oligarchs, the donor class, and the Democratic elite. The Democratic Party, in other words, now the Democratic Party is doing everything it can to make sure that democracy does not happen. It's pretending that it wants to preserve democracy by actually destroying it.
So, there you have it. One among many things. They so many lawsuits. They try to make things as hard as possible. They just a smear campaign on RFK's character. And if you spend a little bit of time listening to this guy, listen to one of his podcasts. It's a lot easier on Instagram. I get it if you find his voice to be difficult to hear, but if it's a lot easier on Instagram because he has captions, so you can follow along, and that makes it a lot simpler. So yeah, again, that video was one among many of him explaining all the different ways that the powers that be tried to stop him from having any kind of campaign. And by the way, when he then teamed up with Trump and said, okay, I'm endorsing Trump because Trump says that he'll put me in charge of the health of this country to the extent that's possible in his administration, then he's tried to get himself taken off of the ballots in all of the swing states because evidence showed that he was going to, if anything, take votes away from Trump in those swing states. And so he tried to get himself taken off the ballot. And even though they had fought him getting on the ballot in every state, they had fought and fought and fought to try to keep him off the ballot. As soon as he said, I actually want to take myself off the ballots in Pennsylvania, etc., then they started trying to stop him from taking himself off the ballot because they wanted him to keep taking votes from Trump. I mean, it's just so corrupt. It's so corrupt. So the idea that the Democrats are the pro-democracy party is laughable, and it's so corrupt at this point that there's just no way to say Trump is the bigger threat to democracy. The democracy has been a joke and a sham for a long time, and it's going to take a lot to get through it. And honestly, the craziest thing about the Trump situation is that he is the first person to have broken through the establishment stranglehold where they get to pick their two stooges each time and let us pretend that we have a real choice. The giant douche and the turd sandwich, even though Trump was portrayed as the giant douche in the South Park episode, the truth is he actually did something very different, which is that without the permission of the establishment, he became the Republican Party candidate. And Trump has been a Democrat his whole life, and he He broke the system's stranglehold. And so now we have that model. On the left, that's also what we're going to have to do. You're going to have to be famous enough so that the mainstream media gives you airtime, but also we have all these podcasts and other ways to reach people now. So you got to be somebody who can get a lot of attention. Trump got a lot of attention. He knew how to get a lot of attention, and it worked, and he was able to capture the public's imagination. Who would it take from the left? Someone on the left who's super famous already and very charming and very funny and also a really good person. That would be amazing. And I'm not sure, no one's exactly coming to my mind when I say that, but it's probably going to have to be something like that. Is it great that it might have to be a round of celebrities for a while? Maybe not, but also maybe the president is largely a figurehead who we want to surround themselves with great people who know what they're doing and who are smart and capable. Maybe it's okay to have a figurehead who's just good at talking, but who does actually surround themselves with good people who want to make the country better. I think we can do better than Trump as a country, but Trump was a battering ram that broke the powers that be's system. You know, they had it so that they just got to choose, all right, we'll put this person from this family here and then this person from this family and we'll let you guys decide, you know, and this is something different. Okay, another one of the things that we heard on the left over and over again is, along the same veins, from the Trump threatened democracy thing, is this idea of election denialism, and that's the big problem. You can't support the people who are into this election denial. But you know, I remember election denial. It's been ramping up at least since 2000, when Al Gore lost to Bush because of the Florida people, where maybe they didn't know how to vote properly or this, that, and the other, and then it went to the Supreme Court and they decided that it should just go to Bush, which maybe that wasn't the right decision. But point being, the rhetoric has been ramping up at least since then. I was born in '86, so maybe it was even before then happening more, but that's what I remember, the start of it. And so there was a lot of talk in 2000 about Bush not really being the president, not being a legitimate president, how it should have been Al Gore, it really was Al Gore, that kind of stuff. And then here's a collection of videos that I found that, and I'm only going to show you a part of it because it goes on for a long time. This guy collected a ton of videos on the left's election denialism. So let's follow along though with some stuff starting in 2016 after Hillary lost.
You can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
How can you win with Russian interference, though?
That's a real
what I'm
thing.
scared about in 2020.
But rightly.
Because I think he's an illegitimate president that didn't really win. So how do you fight against that in 2020?
You are absolutely right.
He's an illegitimate president in my mind.
Would you be my vice presidential candidate? Folks, look, I absolutely agree.
Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered.
Russia interfered with our election, attacked our democracy for the sole purpose of artificially placing someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They were successful.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president.
The president-elect, although legally elected, is not legitimate.
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You said you believe that Russia's interference altered the outcome of the election.
I do.
We have a president who, if in fact it is proven, has been assisted by the Russians and may in fact not be a legitimate president.
The one thing that Trump is fearful of when it comes to his being president is that finally we will see how illegitimate his victory actually was.
I have an objection.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina.
I object because people are horrified.
He's an illegitimate president.
Our election was hijacked. There is no question. Congress has a duty to hashtag protect our democracy and hashtag follow the facts.
John Lewis is completely right. There is a cloud of illegitimacy around the election of Donald Trump. The Russians interfered with his election. James Comey and the FBI interfered with his election. The fake news industry interfered with his election.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help.
Do you believe Trump is a legitimate president?
What I believe is that there's no question that the outcome of this election was affected by the Russian interference.
There absolutely is a cloud of illegitimacy.
So I mean, it's illegitimate. There's a cloud of illegitimacy. These people have a million ways to try to paint things, but that's election denial. They're denying that that he's legitimately the president. And remember, it was years of this Russian interference, collusion kind of stuff, and it really all came to kind of nothing. And so much of the craziness of Trump's first term in office, it was just all, I mean, I remember like This American Life and places were doing these conspiracy theory stuff about Russian interference, and it all turned out to not really be that much of anything. And again, there's always foreign actors trying to meddle in our elections, but I don't think anyone ever thinks that they legitimately like created a bunch of votes that weren't real somehow. So the idea that he wasn't the legitimate president, like, again, this kind of shit has been happening on both sides for at least 24 years, where whoever loses has some kind of reason why they think that it wasn't legitimate, that they lost. Did Trump take things to an 11 with his denial in 2020? Yeah, I don't love it. I don't love some of the stuff that he said and did, but a lot of it has also been exaggerated or misconstrued by the left media too. And I don't know. I don't know whether January 6th was, whether there really were a bunch of like agents planted there to like make it into this bad thing. It wouldn't really surprise me if there was some of that, because it really wasn't defended. The White House really wasn't like well defended before then, of course. And then after January 6th, they put a bunch of protections up around the White House, and I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted an excuse to do that. It probably would have looked weird if there hadn't been some kind of incident for them to be like, you know what, we need to defend ourselves in case the people ever uprise against us, considering how corrupt and shitty we are. The people all might realize that it is time for them to start pooping on our desks and demanding more from us as their governors. But so now they had that excuse and they did all of that. But honestly, who shouldn't we all march on Washington and poop on their desks? Is anyone happy with the job that our government has been doing? I don't think so. So, and January 6th, whatever it was, a riot for sure. And even if there weren't any agents in there, trying to make it into that kind of a thing, and it really was just a bunch of crazy MAGA people going, our election was stolen and we're going to do something. It was not an insurrection. It was some kind of weird riot. I mean, people are taking selfies. People are dressed as things and painted up and stuff. But if it were an insurrection, some of those Republicans would have brought a gun. It turns out like 5 people were found to even have a gun. None of them fired them. Like, no, that's not an insurrection. An insurrection is when you try to take over. That is not what they were doing. They were doing a demonstration of some sort. So let's call a spade a spade. Let's think of things in a proportional way. So one of the attacks that I hear lobbed against Trump and the Republicans is that they're not protecting women. And of course, this is all about abortion access, which, look, I'm pro-choice. I'm going to do a whole episode about the abortion question because I am in favor of real discussions about that, because I think it's valid that some people have really strong opinions and beliefs that abortion should be more illegal than it could be. But I am pro-choice. But when it comes to protecting women, there's a lot more than abortion. And also, Trump has said he would veto a national abortion ban. It's not up to the president at this point. Beyond that, it's something that you need to take up with Congress and your state legislatures if you want to have abortion access in your state, since the Supreme Court has said that it is a states' rights issue at this point. But abortion is just not the only issue facing women. And of course, the most famous one facing women, I'm supposed to look at the camera. I think this is looking at the camera. It's weird when I'm on my iPhone, which I'm going to be using my real camera at the next episode when I'm in my studio. But so when it comes to protecting women, abortion is just not the only thing that women care about. And one thing that women increasingly care about, as well as men increasingly care about, is the trans issue. By the way, I know and I like and I love a lot of trans people. I have lived with trans women before, multiple of them, multiple times. I have dated a trans man before. So I am not afraid of trans people. I am not disgusted by trans people, except to the extent that I'm disgusted, aesthetically and or morally by people of every demographic sometimes. But I like many, if not most people, have had issues and concerns and questions for many years when it comes to childhood transition and prisons and sports and just the whole like transgender ideology as it is, which not all trans people subscribe to, but there's this thing called gender ideology. But we're going to make another whole video on that. Cannot wait to make a video about my favorite topic, the gender stuff, but that's not what this video is, and I just want to put some examples of how women are not being protected by the Democrats.
Previous to SB 132, biological male inmates were allowed to, on a case-by-case individualized basis, be placed in women's facilities, but not if they hadn't had surgery, and it was always very individualized. What the bill did, what SB 132 did, is it took away all of that safeguarding. It took away the ability to make individualized case assessments. It made it illegal to discriminate on the basis of anatomy, and it, including things like hormones. You don't have to identify as a woman anymore. You can identify as non-binary or many other things. And so what the results are is that there's 50 men who are housed there. There's hundreds more on a wait list who are still being processed. Nearly all of them have penises. They have their male anatomy, and most of them are not taking hormones. There's many of them that go by he, him, that don't identify as women. They don't even pretend to, but the state doesn't have the ability under SB 132 to deny most of those requests.
Review the fact that this was an individual, JJS, who had raped a 9-year-old boy, raped a 17-year-old girl, was put in prison, went to prison for a long time. After that person was paroled, JJS, the way you put it on page 44 of the report and recommendation, was that that JJS sent 2 sexually explicit images of minors in 2015 while out on parole. I should point out this is kind of a euphemistic reference. These were not just sexually explicit images. These were sexually explicit images of adults violently molesting children, sexually assaulting, abusing children violently. Every time this person has had an opportunity to offend, this person has offended. And yet you recommended this person against the recommendation of the U.S. Bureau of Prisons to go to a women's facility. Now, your reasoning here is stunning to me. Going back again to page 44 of your report and recommendation, you say, quote, "There are no signs that petitioner is at risk of reoffending." I'm struggling to understand how you could possibly conclude that. Because the minute this person was released, this person engaged in other offenses. Yes, not a contact offense while out on parole, but there are still issues going on. It says nothing. You don't adequately grapple with the obvious fact that this is a 6'2" biological male. Yes, transition aside, the transition didn't begin until age 51 or 52. By then, JJS had acquired all of the physical, biological size and strength advantages of being male. Those don't go away because there is a transition. On what planet does it make sense? On what planet does that person with that sexual offense history, with being biologically male and also 6'2", not pose a threat to the safety of female inmates? I don't understand how you could conclude that this person shows no risk of being an offender. Now, you argue at one point that this person has shown no pattern or history of offending while in prison. Yeah, because JJS was in prison with a bunch of other men where the size and strength differentials aren't quite the same. Can you help me understand this? Why is it okay? Why is it safe? Why is it fair to female inmates to send this person to a female prison? This is a guy who raped a 17-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy. Why is that safe? 6'2" biological male.
Senator Lee, as I do in every case before me, I look at the record evidence. I consider the facts before me. In this case, the facts that I considered included that every single warden who supervised this petitioner recommended that the petitioner be transferred to a women's facility because of her serious medical needs, because she had engaged in no violence, no infractions, and in fact had been the victim of sexual assault.
While in a male prison,
Okay, free speech is an issue that I maybe heard a little bit on the left of them trying to act like the right is against free speech, and I'm sure there are some issues on the right about free speech, but generally speaking, the weirdest thing has happened where now the left is the party that's more censorious and concerned about speech and thinks there should be more limits, and the right has become the champion of free speech, to the point where now saying that you believe in free speech has become red-coded to a lot of people and some kind of like alt-right dog whistle or whatever the language that some of these crazy leftists are using. That, again, those of you who are on the left who are listening to this, who consider yourselves more liberal, center left, whatever, like, we gotta tell these people no. Whatever Gen Z or whoever it is that thinks that free speech is not the bee's knees, it is the bee's knees. Speech needs to be legal. You can still shun people if they say stuff that you think is abhorrent. That's important to tell people, hey, that's gross. We don't say that. Remember when we all decided racism was super gay and uncouth and passé and outre and not done, and we, it was against our religions? I know things have gotten more complicated because of all the weird woke backlash, but that was, if someone said the N-word or someone called someone something, if someone said something in a hateful way, we would all shun them. And that's not cancel culture. That's just saying, hey dude, what the fuck? Like, who says that anymore? That's gross, dude. That, in terms of threats to the democracy or anything, like, that's a big worry, because there's been some stuff on the left that's really worrisome. So let's have a look at a bit of that.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
There is. So now let's talk about censorship, another issue that the Democrats have, that if you want to talk about threats and which one of the parties is a bigger threat to democracy, let's talk about some of the stuff that the Democrat side is up to.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg now says the Biden-Harris administration pressured him to censor content and that he regrets not speaking out about it. In a letter to the House Judiciary Committee, Zuckerberg wrote, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Zuckerberg said an FBI warning also led Facebook to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story, which he said they will not do again. And he added he will not endorse or contribute to any campaigns this season after being criticized for funding voter efforts in left-leaning districts in 2020.
Why do I believe this? It's not a belief, it's a fact. And as soon as I was injured within 15, 20 minutes of my first dose, I had paresthesias with numbness tingling up and down my injected arm that over days spread to my face and my eyes. I went to see a neurologist. He ran some tests. He's like, well, this is all new. We don't know much about it, but the hospital is going to mandate it. You should get a second dose. And everything in my medical mind and in my bones was telling me, no, if you have a reaction after something, don't do it again. But the pressure was immense, and then 3 weeks rolled around, I got a second dose, and after that, everything blew up. I went from being a healthy, 100% healthy, fully functioning nurse to in a complete downward spiral of health. I had a myriad of symptoms.
So there you go. In terms of censorship, I mean, hopefully you guys all remember how 2020 was. You weren't allowed to say that COVID probably escaped from that Wuhan lab. Oh, the virus that they were doing gain-of-function research. Remember, we were told it wasn't gain-of-function research, and then it turns out it was. And look, you look into the evidence, you see, like, it seems pretty obvious that it came from the damn lab, but that you were racist. You were somehow racist if you said I came from the lab, but not from the wet market. Like, I don't really understand that. We were told what we had to think about masks and vaccines. People were all forced to vaccinate. My body, my choice. What happened to that? I was forced to vaccinate. I had to get vaccinated in order to do a comedy festival that is like a really prestigious comedy festival. It really sucks. I didn't want to get vaccinated. I was young and healthy, and I had a very healthy lifestyle, lots of sunlight, lots of turmeric and garlic and exercise, okay? And I also was living out in the country. I had kind of a social distancing baked into my life at the time. I was living a very, very healthy lifestyle that was somewhat away after the point that the vaccines had come out. I was already kind of away from people to a large extent, and so I didn't want to get the vaccine. I was learning a lot. These mRNA things really weren't vaccines. They were some kind of novel technology. It hadn't really been tested. We just weren't sure, and so I thought I would rather play this differently personally. But then I got COVID, the second variant, Delta, whatever it was called, Delta 9, whatever it was called. And everyone in my little bubble got it, and we all had it, and it was okay. Various ones of us, I think some people were taking ivermectin. I don't think I did, but we all had different things, and we were just eating a lot of bone broth, etc. And we were fine. But then I had to get vaccinated right away in order to go to this festival. And it said you're supposed to wait, I can't remember what it was, a month or 3 months or something between getting COVID and getting vaccinated, but I couldn't do that. And so I had to, a few days after recovering for COVID, I had to go and get vaccinated, even though at risk to my health, because I needed to do that for my career. The whole thing to me was just so fucked up. It's all bullshit. The vaccines turned out to not do what they said they would do, and to have more negative effects than they said. The damn virus escaped from a lab in Wuhan where they were doing gain-of-function research. And even if that's not true, which it probably is, but even if it's not true, it never should have been censored that was potentially the case, because the scientists should be able to study it going, all right, let's see, because it depends. If this did escape from the lab, then it might be mutated in a different way than how it would have been if it escaped in nature. Well, and President Biden has just offered us an obvious way to end this video with a little talk about his pardoning of his son Hunter. Now look, I'm sure that Biden is right that it's targeted to some extent, the prosecutions of him. I'm sure it's a lawfare to some extent. It's singling Hunter Biden out. But to the extent it's singling Hunter Biden out, it's because they're all crooks in Washington. There's just so many crooks in Washington and their families and whatever. So many people influence peddling and involved in all kinds of corruption. So I say put them all in jail, or at least poop on all their desks or something. And there's plenty of people who should be in prison. Come on, President Biden, your son's a criminal in so many ways. Apparently, and now he's been blanket pardoned. This is a pretty unprecedented thing for a president to give anyone a blanket pardon at all, much less his own son. For these last 10 years, from the time he started working at Burisma, it's not great. Not to mention there have been all kinds of crimes. Apparently, my favorite one is this little story that this guy who had Hunter Biden as a tenant for a couple of years, whom is owed, I think that's right, $300,000. He came to Hunter and said, hey, I need my money, over and over again. And Hunter apparently tried to sell him his art and say his art is worth $300,000. And that art, he went and analyzed it, and it turns out that art had been made at least partially with Hunter Biden's own poop. I don't know if he knew it was Hunter's poop, or if he just knew it was poop and assumed it was Hunter's. Anyway, Hunter Biden should be rotting in prison, but so should Joe Biden, and so should most of all the people who run this country. I'm sure that's true. So is he singled out? Maybe, but it would be one thing if he had just pardoned him, but the amount of times he said he wouldn't, people said he wouldn't, and people shed, as opposed to Trump, who's so norm defying, who's so like corrupt, and he wants to pardon the January 6th people and whatever. Here we have Biden, who's upholding the norms and the Constitution and the decorum of the office, and puts the country before himself, and just none of it's true.
Will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Well, is there?
I just said no. I just answered. Go ahead.
Would the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
And I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
First briefing since Hunter was indicted again in Los Angeles. Why doesn't President Biden just pardon him?
President, I've been very clear. The president's not going to pardon his son.
And one more about the...
You've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentences for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not...
It's still a no. It's still a no.
It will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no, and I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
The contrast is profound. To sit there and say, well, I'm not going to intervene in the legal process, and I wouldn't pardon my son. One side, Democrats and Joe Biden protecting the justice system. And on the other, Republicans and Trump protecting Trump.
Our current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, again, it's all about the contrast.
Their latest attack has been that Joe Biden has politicized and weaponized the DOJ, right? That was the whole argument around Donald Trump's conviction. And this week, of course, Hunter Biden was found guilty, and Joe Biden has very clearly said he would not pardon his son, he would not commute his sentence. How stark is this difference? I mean, how can Republicans keep making this argument now that Joe Biden has really put it out there? Where's Hunter? And he stood there in a courtroom, flanked by his family, and he's accepted his sentence.
He is not pardoning his son, which he could do. These are federal charges. Right. He is not doing that. He is not doing it because he is living what it means to have a rule of law in this country. Yeah. And then if you want to know if he believes it, you could actually see what is happening with his own son.
I mean, who knows if Joe Biden is even awake? He might not even remember who Hunter is, but I'm sure Jill made that decision. Whatever it is, point being, these people are all criminals. If we do want to resurrect the Democratic Party, we're probably going to have to kick almost all of them out. It needs to be a whole no incumbents November next time around, okay? And maybe for the next several times around. Kick them all out. Kick them all out. Some of us are going to have to run. We got to find some kind of celebrity. Anyway, okay, more ideas will be coming in the future. The next episode is all about Joe Rogan. Please watch, even if I'm trying to reach blue team minded people, but if you are more of a red team minded person or a just non-blue type person, but some people like that you think might be able to receive messages, then please follow along on this journey with me, and especially tune in next time for the Rogan episode, because this is a message that has got to get out. I'm hearing the cracks in the liberal media where, Pod Save America now is mentioning, we probably should have done Rogan. People are starting to realize some things. So we're going to talk about the Rogan situation next week. And if you like Rogan, even, a little bit, and, or you're a Brogan, if you're a Rogan fan at all and you want to know how to convince someone to engage with the Rogan universe, the Rogan sphere, is that what we say? Anyway, then please watch the next episode. Please subscribe now, like, comment, make sure that you click the notify me thing, because I have convinced many, many, many people to give Rogan a chance and to get out of their bubble and realize that things are very different than what they've been led to believe. And so I'm very good at convincing people and making the case. And again, the point of all of this is, like, Democrats, our side of the street sucks. And in many ways, the Republicans have become a better party than the Democrats. They still suck in a lot of ways too, though. And a lot of Republicans listening to this, y'all still got a lot of people y'all need to kick out of your party, and you got a lot of idiots. And if anyone here is a red team type of person and you like Marjorie Taylor Greene and you don't think she's an idiot, let me know if I'm missing something, because all I've really seen from her is little clips and pieces and quotes and whatever, but she seems like a moron to me just from that. But I do wonder, is she someone I'm wrong about? So please, everybody, like, comment, subscribe, click the notify me thing. If you want to comment but you don't know what to say, just give me some of those American flags. The Team Democrats are officially back into the American flag, pro-America, America pride thing, right? That's the one thing Kamala Harris gave us, other than a lot of great memes, some great impersonations.
Let me be clear. What you do is one of the most important jobs in America. You are an educator, okay? Women need to know what to do when there's a pair of testicles in their face.
I am gonna probably kind of miss making fun of Kamala Harris. I'm gonna miss Trump impersonations. I am worried that the Trump presidency could be a really bad thing in some ways. I think it'll definitely be good in many ways, and I think it's great to tell the establishment to go fuck themselves. But, you know, he also might get us into all kinds of shit in the Middle East. It could be a nuclear war on the horizon. We have to remember, some of our enemies don't think the same way we do. We've got a bunch of religious nuts in the Middle East who don't mind dying, you know, and their nuclear weapon situation's not great. And then anyway, so I am worried about Trump. He also might be the best thing for foreign policy. I think of it as a gamble, but I am glad that he won for one reason, and that is I don't want to stop hearing all the impersonations of him. We need 4 more years of Trump impersonations. They are so fun to watch. So many people have good ones. Even I love doing Trump impersonations, and I'm not good at them, but it's just so fun to do. They're the best. They're the greatest impersonations to do, bar none. They're so fun. I don't know. It's not very good. But I need like a phrase to get into the Trump accent. Does anyone have a good technique? You know how you say, I don't know if y'all know how to do, there's some like tricks to get into accents. You know how to get into the Boston accent? You go, you pack the cat, have it yad. I add a little bit more to that phrase, but if you want to see that, then watch my Ellen DeGenderless special on YouTube. You just have to search for it because it's not on my account. It's on 4x3 Productions. You know, and then if you want to get into the Australian accent, you have to say, rise up lights, rise up lights. Just say rise up lights, but then think in your mind that you're saying razor blades. Rise up lights, rise up lights, rise up lights, get the shrimp on the barbie, you know. Just kind of gets you right off into it. So does anyone have a good Trump starter phrase? I guess the greatest was one of, he's the greatest accent of all time. Okay. I think is my starter phrase for Trump. Okay, anyway, off the rails. What have I not said? I really appreciate it. I've been seeing the followers tick up bit by bit on here now that, I only posted one video, but, you know, when I've posted a few videos before, I love YouTube, and I ran away from it for years. I didn't really even watch it. This is kind of like my journey with stand-up comedy was this way, too, where I ran away from it for so long, and I couldn't even really watch a lot of stand-up comedy because I knew that's what I wanted to be doing, but now I love YouTube. I think it's the coolest, and, like, I have like 20,000 something followers on Instagram, but like every one subscriber on YouTube means so much more to me than 1,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram. Like the fact that you guys really care about long form content and you want to engage with it, that's so cool to me. And I hope that if nothing else, that I will be able to use this as a way to also say, hey, I'm touring. I am a comedian. So I haven't been as funny on these because I don't know. I have a lot of frustrations with the Democrats that I need to get out. I'm hoping that I get into the swing. fuck, I'm supposed to be looking at the camera. I hope that I can get into the swing of things and start being funnier. But also, I am a really funny comedian, and if you see me live, you'll see that. But I'm one of those comedians. I'm not always like the funniest person in real life. Like, I'm a very passionate person. I'm really nerdy. I'm really like interested in all kinds of ideas and history and philosophy and everything. And so I'm not always just like, I'm not the class clown kind of comedian, but I am really funny. I run fun shows. I headline. I've got a great hour right now that's very fun. So if you are interested in seeing me live, then also feel free to write down in the comments, say that, and then tell me what city you're in so that I can get you into my little spreadsheet one way or another. I'll get you on some kind of contact list depending on how you like to be engaged with that. Okay, this has gone on long enough. God bless America. And yes, Democrats, we're saying that again. It's fucking good. It's just good to say God bless America. God bless you. God bless America. Don't shy away from that. Most of us believe in some kind of God anyway, even if it's not a bearded dude in the sky. That's for, you know, children and old Irish women and stuff. But a lot of us do believe in the oneness of the universe, something that could be called God, some kind of force outside of us, and maybe outside of the material universe, our human understanding of the material universe. Something like that, guys. So let's just go with it, okay? Christmas is for everyone. Merry Christmas. I don't care if you're a Muslim or Jewish or Buddhist or atheist. Christmas is a pagan holiday that we stole and adapted it. So take whatever version of Christmas you want. It's fucking kick-ass to get gifts for all the people that you love. It's fucking kick-ass to have a delicious smelling tree in your home. It's awesome that we get some time at the part of the winter where it's just gotten as dark as possible, where it's cold, where people are thinking about unaliving themselves. We have nice holidays to scoot us along into the new year, and then after Christmas and the new year happening, the days are at least getting longer. And so things are looking up, even though it'll be cold for months. So anyway, Christmas rules. And Christmas music is awesome, except for a lot of the bad shit that they mostly play at the store. But that's unfortunate because we live, you know what, the best Christmas music, most of it is the religious stuff. Oh Holy Night, Silent Night, Angels We Have Heard On. There's a lot of really good stuff. It really sucks that you have to listen to Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree in the malls over and over and over again. And honestly, I wish every religion would write some Christmas songs that were you know, bangers, and that we could then play every religion and if atheists want to write some Christmas music, good. Some pagans, some Satanists, let's all write Christmas music that's good, and then play all that instead of having to listen to that. That Mariah Carey, I know some of y'all love that song, but I cannot stand that stupid Mariah Carey song. Shut up. Okay, but I love Christmas. Merry Christmas. God bless America. God bless you. See y'all next time.